Lord, that's a lot of glare. Well, hiya friend, it's me Deanna, and welcome to another doll repaint video. Right now it's October, so you know what that means. That means that right now it's the best time of the year. Currently it is peak spooky season, but October's also all about snuggly sweaters, extreme carb-fueled comfort foods, epic pumpkin patch photo shoots, and a variety of other wholesome autumnal activities. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the spookiness of October, but for this month's doll, I really wanted to lean into the wholesomeness of fall time, and that's where I came up with the idea of Inez, a young witch who moves from the big city to a little cottage in the forest. Inez lives in a magical world in one of the largest cities. There, she works in an office of one of the world's largest flying broom manufacturers as the company's chief financial officer. She likes her job. She likes all the little puzzles involved in the world of accounting, and she's worked really hard to become the company's youngest CFO in its history. However, lately all the days have started to bleed together, the puzzles have become more routine, and she just can't help feeling like something's missing in her life. She tried talking to her parents about these feelings, but they just don't seem to understand why she isn't happy with her success. Then one day, her parents call her and tell her that her great aunt, her favorite aunt, has sadly passed away. She grabs her broom and flies home at once. During the reading of her great aunt's will, they learn that she left Inez her little cottage that's out in the middle of a forest. Inez is overwhelmed. She has so many happy memories of visiting her great aunt during the summers. They're some of the happiest in her life, but she can't possibly take care of the cottage while living in the city. So she decides to take some time off of work to clean out the cottage and get it ready to sell. While she's there, she's flooded with so many memories of the summers she spent there, of practicing her charms and watching her aunt make potions to sell at the local village that she made with ingredients that she gathered from her own garden. While going through her great aunt's belongings, she finds all of her potion books and starts going through them. Instantly, she's transfixed on the complexities and possibilities that come from potion making. She starts daydreaming about staying in this cottage, making her own concoctions, and all the problems she could solve with them. And it was like the last puzzle piece was put into place in her life. She knew that even though her parents might be disappointed, that she belonged here in this cottage. Don't worry though, once her parents see how happy she is, they finally get behind her new path. So now that we know a little bit more about Inez's backstory and how she's basically the embodiment of fall-time wholesomeness, I think it's time to get started on her repaint. So enough talking, let's get started. Let's jump right into prepping our doll for today's transformation. Today, I'll be working with a Rosabella beauty doll from the Ever After High collection. I wanted to work with an Ever After High doll because their large open faces are perfect for the vision that I had in mind for Inez. We have a lot to cover for today's video, and to prep my dolls, I typically do the same things, so I'm going to briefly go over my prep steps. First, I'm going to cut her old hair down to make pulling out her old plugs a lot easier. Next, to get the glue that holds her old plugs nice and soft, I'm going to soak her head in very hot water for a couple of minutes. After that, the rubber of the head is soft enough for me to detach the head from the body and to come in with my forceps tool and pull out the old plugs. Then I'll be using some pure acetone to remove her old factory face paint. Sometimes I'll take off the paint on the scalp, but today we're going to keep it for later. And lastly, off camera, I'll be spraying the head and body with Mr. Super Clear Sealant to prep the plastic for all the different types of paints and pastels I'll be using. Now that Inez is all prepped and ready to go, we're going to be starting with her body repaint. Inez has Latina heritage with tan skin that has golden undertones. So I put together a skin tone palette using ground up soft pastels while referencing photos of other women with similar skin tones. My palette is made up of different tones of burnt siennas, Naples yellows, cadmium orange, and raw sienna to get those subtle tanned golden tones. Okay, let's talk outfit. I think for her new outdoor adventures, it would be really cute to give her a frilly Lolita-inspired dress. I found this fabric online and it has all these tiny little yellow flowers that I think really vibes well with the idea of her going out into her garden and collecting plants and herbs for her potions. Off camera, I cut out all the dress pieces, and I have to say, this is going to be a pretty ambitious dress for me. This dress will have a two-tiered skirt with a long-sleeved bodice, along with ribbons and lace details. I'm using a moonlight jewel pattern that I've been eyeing for a while, but was too intimidated until recently to try. If you've been following me for a while, then you already know that sewing was very new to me when I started doll repainting. And lately, I've really been taking the bull by the horns and practicing a lot. That's the main reason my videos have been taking a little bit longer to get out lately, because I've been practicing, taking classes, and I've even started making some clothes for myself. It just goes to show that if you give yourself some space and permission to learn and grow at a new skill or hobby, it can become something that you really love. And I'm really starting to love sewing. And if you don't mind me being all mushy, you guys have given me so much love and support along the way, and it has really meant a lot to me, and definitely helped me continue to push and keep improving, which I'm still doing for sure. I also got a new tool to use on a different issue I've had, and that's turning out the sleeves. I always have problems with bunching and turning it out without tearing my seams, and this turner tool is a revelation. You could probably do this with a straw, but I got a pack of strap turners that come with different sizes. To make the two-tiered skirt, I'm going to use the same floral print on the bottom layer, and I'm going to use this yellow fabric for the top tier to give the dress a little breath of life with a pop of color. I'm also going to be adding this elastic ruffle trim to the bottoms of each skirt. Here's the dress after I've closed up the skirts in the back and turned it out. And so far, I'm really happy with how it's turning out. Now I'm going to add some extra details to make it even more frilly and cute. First up, I'm adding these little buttons to the blouse area of the bodice. Now in the back, I've already added closures and tied the long ribbon around her waist. Next, I'm going to add this bow I made out of the same fabric right on top of the knotted ribbon. Next up, we want to make her a pair of socks that she'll wear under her boots. As you can see, I've already basted the seams, and I've added some lace to the tops of the socks. Off camera, I sewed the seams shut, and I'm using that same turner tool to turn them out. I thought it'd be kind of fun to compare how these socks turned out to the very first pair I made for my very first doll. You can see they have some pretty ratty back seams, so you know, slowly but surely, friends, I'm starting to get there. Next up, we're going to work on her shoes. I bought these boots specifically for this project because I want her to have a nice pair of boots that she can take walks in or tromp around the garden in. I want this pair of boots to look like aged leather, so I'm using some black soft pastels to make it look aged and worn in certain places of the boots. Since she works in these boots, I don't want them looking all clean and pristine. After sealing in the pastels, I'm now coming in with some silver paint just to highlight some of the boots' buckles and eyelets. I love how the shoes have these details, so I definitely want to show them off. For a little bit of extra detailing, her shoelaces are finished with these fluffy tassels, and to make them look extra fluffy, I'm using watercolor pencil to draw in some extra texture. After the paint's dried, I took the boots outside and sealed them with Mr. Super Clear Glossy Coat to give them a really shiny leather look.
Okay, for the last part of her outfit, I'm going to be making her a little witch's hat. I thought about making her a classic one out of felt, but then I saw these adorable straw witch's hats on Pinterest, and I just knew she had to be wearing one of her very own while she's out in the sun gardening.
The hat will be constructed out of two parts, the brim and the cone. To make both parts, I will be deconstructing some little doll-sized straw hats that I got off of Etsy. Making the brim will be the easy part, since that job is basically done for me. All I have to do is take a seam ripper and unravel the rows that make up the crown of the hat. And for the cone, I'm taking a second hat and unraveling it completely. To start building the cone, I've added the very tip separately, just to make sure that it has a very defined tip. During a failed attempt at this, I struggled with the cone not coming to enough of a point. The rest of the process was relatively simple. All I had to do was tightly wrap the cone with the straw while attaching it with hot glue, making sure to wipe off the excess glue so it didn't look chunky later. Did I burn my fingers like crazy during this step? Why yes. Yes, I did. While I worked, I kept checking to see if the cone had become wide enough so that it would fit in the opening of the brim's hat, and I've finally gotten to where it's nestled nicely in there. I've left a little bit of extra straw so that I can cover up the seam of where the two pieces meet, and all I have to do now is add some hot glue to firmly secure it in place. And lastly, I think it would only be fitting for her to decorate her hat with some sunflowers that came from her very own garden. So I don't want Inez to be a headless body with a cute dress on forever. So we're going to fix that right now, starting with the reroot. I liked the color that originally came with the Rosabella doll, so I picked a very similar color for my hair stash. To start with, I'm going to be giving her long hair, which I might cut shorter later on. At this point, I was still trying to figure out her hairstyle. I'm doing the standard needle and poke method of adding hair that I usually do with nylon doll hair. And to make things easier for myself, I'm following along with the original hair plugs, which will end up giving her a really cute side part. Putting in hair plugs can take a really long time, but I have to say that it can be pretty relaxing, almost meditative in a way. All you have to do is put on some relaxing sounds and just let your mind slip away.
going to be doing the reroot in 2 different stages today. This is the end of stage 1, and I purposely didn't add hair plugs to the first 2 rows of the hairline. After I reroot, I always put my doll's hair in a sock to protect it from sealant and pigment, but no matter how hard I try to avoid it, the sock always ends up covering parts of her forehead, leaving a strip of unpainted skin. So I'm experimenting a little here. If I pin the sock back further, I can paint higher up, and hopefully I won't have to worry about little missed spots. Upward and onward to Inez's face up. I'll be using the same color palette that we used on the body, and as always, I will start the face up with the colors that can be seen under the skin, also known as the subdermal color zones. For her main undertone color, we'll be using green today instead of blue because her skin has warm undertones. For people with golden tan skin tones, I've read that cadmium orange goes really well with their color mixing palette, so this will be applied to the red color zone to emphasize the muscular areas of the face, while still harmonizing with the other colors of her skin. Here is all 3 of the subdermal color zones after they've been sealed. And for the next step, we are still going to be working under the skin by adding some vein lines using a watercolor pencil. I started adding this step earlier this year, and I think it's really elevated the look of my doll's skin and makes it look more realistic. And speaking of realistic, you guys know what time it is. It's freckling time. Today, to give my skin even more of a realistic texture, I'll be using a tiny little toothbrush to spray on 2 different brown shades using watered down acrylic paint. Right now, Inez is looking like something out of the movie Evil Dead, so next we have to add several layers of base skin tone to make it look like all these colors and veins are sitting under the skin. I think I gave her about 3 or 4 coats because the green was a little bit strong, and I had to go over those spots a few times later just to make it more subdued. Now we can finally move on to the top side of her skin, and I will be using 2 different sienna tints to contour and highlight. This will give the different planes of the face definition. Next up, we can finally start putting in some details of her facial features. This is the basic first layer where I'm working out the shape of her eyes, setting up the details of her eye sockets, and the placement of her irises. Jumping forward a bit, I want her eyes to be brown but with a warm golden hue, so I'm adding an underlayer of orange. I'll keep adding browns on top, but there'll still be some orange coming through to give them a warm glow.
Moving on up to the eyebrows, I'm starting to draw in the basic shape of the brows, and I want them to have the same kind of coppery coloring as her hair. So I'm using a similar watercolor pencil color as the foundation of the brows. Now with a darker brown pencil, I'm starting to work in how I want the direction of the hairs to lay, and I'll be giving her a slightly quirked brow to give her an amused expression. I've darkened the brows up just a bit to define the shape, but now I want to emphasize some of the individual hairs, so I'm using a cream color to add some highlight to the hairs. For the final fine details, I've switched over to using acrylic paints. First, I'm going to paint on some light bottom lashes using brown so they don't overpower her face. The second color I'm going to use is white, which I'll use to make different parts of her eyes look reflective and shimmery. I know I always say this, but adding these little dots of paint are my favorite parts of the face-up. They just really make her come alive. With her face up complete, we can move on to stage 2 of her reroot and very carefully add the last rows of her hair plugs, hopefully without cracking or chipping the face up we just finished. Well, we didn't crack the face up, so next on our agenda is to make her hair plugs fall flat against her head, because right now she looks like she stuck her finger in a light socket. I've tried a couple different methods of flattening hair, like hot water or using a hair dryer, but something about those methods always feel clunky to me, and I tend to not get the best results. I recently saw a tutorial on the Doll Planet's YouTube channel where she used a flat iron to flatten hair, and I decided to try it out. It took a bit to get used to, but so far I'm pretty happy with the results, so this just might be my go-to method for a while. For her hairstyle, I'm keeping it relatively simple so it fits well under her hat. I'm keeping it on the long side with some layers in the front to emphasize her part line.
Alright, so before we have our final look at Inez, I have a few final touches that I want to give her. The first thing is her very own familiar, because after all, every little witch in a cottage needs an animal friend.
And Inez's animal friend is a baby crow that she found tangled up in some netting on her first day of living in the cottage. She freed the crow from the nets and let him loose, but he didn't seem to want to leave after she freed him. After a while, she noticed him following her around, and he would bring her shiny trinkets as presents. Eventually, he started going everywhere with her, even staying in her cottage, and she named her new friend Guillermo. To make Guillermo, I'll be repainting one of these little crow toys. I've gone ahead and prepped him with Mr. Super Clear Sealant, and first up, I'm going to add some touches of this iridescent paint to his feathers to try to capture the beautiful iridescent sheen that real crow feathers have. Next, I'm using a white watercolor pencil to pick up some of the texture of the feathers and to add details to the face. Crow feathers tend to reflect a lot of light, and adding the white will help pick up the texture of Guillermo's feathers. Now I'm going to add some tiny little catch lights to his eyes, which I mostly managed to do out of frame. Sorry about that, but you can see them here. And last last but not least, I got this adorable little basket off of Etsy, which I want to fill with a bouquet of flowers and herbs that she gathered from her garden. I also got the bouquet from Etsy, and I just love how delicate and beautiful this arrangement is. It is perfect for potion making. So friends, here's the final look of our little cottage witch Inez with her crow friend Guillermo. I have to say that working on them was so much fun, and I'm basically obsessed with her. I keep sneaking into my studio just to stare at her. There are some dolls that can be struggle after struggle to get through, but everything just seemed to fall into place with her. Overall, I'd say that everything matched my vision for her, and she was quite a big project from head to toe. For me, I'd have to say that her dress is the star of the show. A lot of my dolls have quite conceptual outfits, so there was something nice about giving her a dress with a classic and clean silhouette, but also still be able to come in and give her lots of extra details without taking away from the simplicity of its shape. Because, you know, it's hard for me to resist adding as many extra details as possible. I think the boots are very cute, and hopefully I achieved the look of aged leather. I was lucky to be able to find these boots on eBay, but in the near future, I want to start pushing my shoemaking skills so I can really start customizing my doll's footwear. I've had absolutely butterfingers when it comes to making shoes in the past, but this is just another skill that I want to hone so my doll skills can keep improving. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I of course want to hear what you think about Inez. I love hearing from you all, and your feedback really helps me grow. And speaking of growing, while you're leaving me a comment, please be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. Every like, comment, and subscription really helps my channel grow, which means that I get to spend more time making dolls and hanging out with this amazing community.
Alright, Inez and I are going to go discuss the medicinal properties of Eye of Newt, but I will see you next time with another doll repaint video. Bye! And a variety of wholesome autumnal and a variety of other wholesome autumnal activities. I tried to say this so many times, you guys. I can't say it. Autumnal. And a variety of other wholesome autumnal activities. Did it.